I'm the managing editor of Movie Maker magazine. We're here in Park City, sitting down with Errol, cinematographer for the last, how many years?
3 years.
The last 3 years of a film called American Promise, a documentary that I'm not going to introduce because I'm going to let Errol introduce himself. So tell us a little bit about American Promise. It was 13 years in the making?
14 years in the making, 13 years of shooting, yes. So American Promise is a film directed and produced by Joe Brewster and by Michelle Stevenson. And it started out in 1999 when Joe and Michelle decided to turn the camera on their family and film their son and their son's best friend and their son's best friend's family for a decade and change. To explore the social and cultural and ethnic and economic dynamics that come into play when taking your children to private school in New York. It starts out with both kids going to the Dalton School, and spoiler alert, it doesn't go so well for all of the students. And it ends up becoming a great comparison between the public school life and the private school life. And the good news is it both works out well for both kids. I'm giving away way too much.
It's okay.
In this description.
So you came onto the project in 2010.
I came on in 2010.
So in our pre-interview we were discussing a little bit, literally about the changing formats. Because Errol's the cinematographer for the last 3 years of the project, and so from a technical standpoint, it sounds like you dealt with. I'm not sure if you were on the digitizing and editing side at all, but it sounds like it would have been a nightmare. Talk about the number of formats you guys shot on over the 13 years.
So, if anyone remembers, like the 1998 World Cup or the 2000 Olympics, you remember shooting it on some rinky-dink camera with fewer pixels than an old Nokia. And so, in 1999, they started out shooting on high 8, then digital 8, then mini DV, then DV cam. Then in the HDV craze in 05, 06, they started shooting on HDV. And then in 2009, I think it is, when the Canon 5D Mark II took off and the DSLR craze went crazy, they started going to something that was more standardized because they knew that the DSLRs would give a more standard look for the rest of the shoot. So then we used the Canon T2i, the Canon 60D, the Canon 5D, and the Canon 7D. Yes, this is a huge shout out for Canon.
Canon's one of Movie Maker's big advertisers, so they don't mind. So you came on in 2010, so therefore you came on working with all the D cameras. So maybe talk a little bit about the upsides and downsides of working with the DSLR. I've definitely worked on features with DSLRs, and there's upsides and downsides, so maybe that'd be great.
I could go for a long time.
Go for it.
And I will actually tell you the reasoning as to why I chose the 60D as my personal camera. So, some of the things that plagued DSLRs in the early ages of DSLR making is, well, there is the obvious sound issue, where because of its very weak preamp inside the camera, it just doesn't make for really good sound recording and makes really noisy sound and all that. But that is easily solved with an external recorder, no big deal. It involved changing the workflow of how you shoot because you're no longer monitoring sound in the camera. You're now looking at a second device.
That's what we're filming this right now.
And when you're shooting a film run and gun in a train station in Brooklyn, New York, it's one extra step because as a shooter, you're looking at the LCD screen, you're maintaining composition, you're making sure the lighting is right. You look down, monitor sound, you're making sure the composition is right. You look behind you, you're trying not to trip over one of those little sidewalk lids that you can fall into an abyss of storage room. Which, while I was shooting one of the subjects, I was walking back with them and they said, Errol, stop! And I stopped about 2 inches shy of falling into a hole in the sidewalk. So yes, it leads to a lot more distractions having to use an external audio recorder. but it also gives you the freedom to like record various higher bitrate formats that the camera may not be able to record.